Oh boy. Perfect. Nailed it. The list was find out why the generator's not charging. Today, we got a brand new to us rear end in the back. Oh crap, we still gotta install it. We're taking a running car that drove itself in here and we're about to undo it and make it a non-running car. And that's not what we drove it in there to do. All non-overdrive transmissions have the same final gear ratio. Do we have enough time for post to do some graphics here? You know there is no post. It's just you. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one too. All final drive, top gear is 1 to 1. So the engine spins once, the transmission spins once, and then that spins the drive shaft once. But that's where it gets mathy again. So your rear end has this effect in all gears, but we're gonna focus on our final gear, which is 1 to 1. The rear end that's currently in there is a 354 to 1 rear end. So the engine is spinning one time, the transmission is spinning one time. It takes 3 1/2 revolutions of the pinion to turn the axle once. Our new rear end is a 256 rear end, which means it has to turn 2.5 times to turn the axle, thus the tire, once. We're talking 28% fewer turns to turn this rear end right behind you fellas versus this rear end that's in here. And that equates to about a common overdrive, which is a 30% gear reduction or a 0.7 blah 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 in your transmission. With this tire size, which is roughly 29 inches, with this rear end, if we are pushing this little engine to 3 grand, which is about the max I would ever run at sustained highway driving, we are pushing, are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? 73 miles an hour. 73 miles an hour. With a lot of interstate speed limits perched right around 70, well, that's just the right speed to get run the hell over. Now, with this gear set that nobody wants, 256, if we're pushing 3 grand in our final drive, 1 to 1 with a non-overdrive transmission, we are doing 101 miles per hour. That's fast, gang. Fast, fast, fast. What that means practically is at 2200 RPM, we will be cruising right at 75 miles an hour. We got room to go faster. We got room to go slower. That basically turns our 4th gear into essentially an overdrive gear on this setup. So the dog and I just had some hot dogs. We had to replenish our vitamin N levels. For those of you who don't hang out at the General Nutrition Center, that's your nitrates. You got to keep those up. Helps the brain juices flowing around so you can do complicated things. I got my spider-proof hat on so we can come up with a plan for the old Presto Changeo. In theory, it's not that hard. In practice, well, you've seen the channel before, right? Check out these big honking McGillicuddies. Wonder if they'd work. Originally I saw them and I thought, no, that'll never work because of the way that it is. I thought I was looking at it and this would cause like a 3-inch drop, which is about all the suspension travel we have, so we may as well just weld the sucker to the frame in that case. But, I didn't realize the spring sat here. Let's get a tape measure. All right, so that spring mount is somewhere like 1 inch and change down from the axle. And so I want to think this through before I get started on it. And for those of you guys paying attention, what I should be saying is I need to start thinking it through before I go any further with it. All right, so our current spring holder inner jobbers only come off like 3/4 of an inch. And then there's that plate, which we'll probably need. That's my relocating plate. Explain that later. Anything we do that increases this distance lowers the car that exact same distance. And if you look here, I was already busy trying to be cool. So there's not a lot of room to go, fellas. I didn't think that spring mount was gonna work anyway because there's no guarantee the pinion angle would be the same, and we need to set the pinion angle. Say it with me at ride height. The last time I did this, I had no idea what I was doing, and we did it out of the car. I say we, because my buddy Tyson was there. There's a picture floating around here somewhere. Spider-proof helmet. But to do this, the rear end's either got to go out the back or out the side. And the out the side option doesn't seem like an option unless we drop the spring. It's not looking like we're going to be able to fish the brake drum through there. We're in a pickle already. A jam. So we got two ways to get this rear end out. One's through the side, the other one's through the back. If we come out the back, we got to get the car extra high for that chunk to clear this gas tank and everything else. In addition, 98.67% sure we got to drop the spring, which I surely don't want to do, but it may not come down to what I want. Option number two, we anchor out the side, but this would be a lot easier to jack up and do on the ground. The issue is setting the pinion angle would be a whole lot easier with this car on the lift. So there's options. Does everybody know how to make one of these things float? Yeah, if you're wondering, I'm still screwing around here. I did at least have an espresso, so I'm screwing around faster. Well, fellers, oh crap. The fuel pump's leaking. All right. Right. But I bought a new one today at Summit. So I guess we're gonna be starting there. What I have determined is I cannot seem to lift this car up while on the lift. So I spent an hour wandering around looking at my steel supply, which is, you know, I got some stuff to build a jack plate. And then I realized because the frame rails are almost just as wide as the ramps on this lift, well, I would need like at least two jack plates, because I would need one where I jack the car up and then another one where I could put a jack stand there, because if the jack is there, then the jack stand can't go there. And whew, I just spent a lot of nitrates worth of thinking on that problem, and we've hardly begun. All I'm really trying to do actually is get the car off the ground to see the suspension hanging, to see if we can go out through the side, or to see if we're going to have to actually disassemble the rear springs and stuff, or at least take them off the shackles and whatever. That's the only thing I'm trying to figure out. So now that we've done that and figured out that we're not driving this car off the lift, let's go ahead and see if we can solve that problem. Considering the afternoon's rolling along and we're not getting a damn thing done, let's go through our sack of goodies. Power brake booster. Got an idea. We'll get to that later. New gasket for the rear end. Dog next door is super excited to hear about that. This is why we made a trip special to Summit today, because we needed... Nope, this isn't it at all. Nope. This is a screw-on oil filter adapter for our 283 in the Model T. See, I'm still thinking about it. Haven't forgot yet. These fellers. Ooh, that's the strong-ass tape. These are the new spring perches for this rear end that's right here that we're going to put in that car. The fact that they had them in stock was a pretty big deal. Indeed, turned out to be the last thing in the sack. I bought a Summit brand fuel pump. Why? Well, because it's cheap. Got some fuel line I picked up on Power Tour, and we can go ahead and replace this fuel pump real quick because it is pouring fuel out. I like mechanical fuel pumps. So this is not something I would normally put on a car or even recommend at this point. This is something that I did to try to solve a problem that came from really, really worn out carburetors. If you're following along at home, no, it did not fix the worn out carburetors. It didn't do anything to help that. But what I have learned this thing is really good for is saving a weak battery. And I'm not even kidding you. After 9 months, this fired right up. But it fired right up because this little fuel pump brought fuel from the back and filled the carburetor. If we had just been turning over the engine trying to get the mechanical pump to do that, well, we'd have been pulling out the battery charger is what I'm saying. All right, have you guys seen the magic trick where a guy snatches the tablecloth out from under a table full of dishes and everything stays right where it's supposed to, no mess whatsoever? Works exactly the same way with fuel lines. Just snatch it out real quick and jam the new one on. You won't even spill a drop. Yeah. Oh dear. Oh boy, not good. Like I said, not a drop. Well, would have been better if the fuel line that I chose was long enough. She's just barely hanging on. That ain't gonna work. Crap. Second time's the charm. 3, 2, 1. Magic. Oh dear. Oh boy. Oh boy. Didn't spill a drop. 3, 2, 1, presto chango! Not a drop. Not a drop. Why is that so long? Does anybody know? Oh no, not the armpit. Ah, no. That's how you swap out a fuel pump. We just gotta wire it in, which is a little bit, it's kind of like a pirate's lair in here. It looks like a booby trap. We got white to black to red. It's gonna work. It's gonna be fine. You're wondering who bubbled up any of this? Me. Gang, just want you to know, I went to go grab this connector, and I reached for and got my hands on heat shrink and a lighter. And it took me a minute to realize this whole garage smells like gas, and I'm covered in fuel. I'll put it back. We're gonna go without on this connection. We've now checked something off the list that was not really even on the list when we started. In fact, that's not on the list either. The list was find out why the generator's not charging. Fix that. I need a chaperone. I need an adult. All right, gang, it is now time for the feats of strength portion of our program, brought to you by being buddyless when you need to lift heavy stuff. Come on. Things are heavy. It's getting later. Progress hasn't progressed. Car's still up here. We got to get it down there. And because I genuinely do not see a way to jack this thing up high enough to unload the suspension to get the rear end out. I did measure the angle of this contraption. What do you call that thing? What are we working on? Rear end? The rear end. Thank you. And so now if I have to tack weld in the new perches before I put the rear end in, I can. In addition, I noted that this pinion angle is, we're at 0 right now. 0. Want to be 3 degrees up. We'll compensate for that. I will measure ride height, but I have got to get rid of these stalactites because apparently a much younger me was afraid to cut the ends off U-bolts. So unless I want to spend until New Year's Day undoing each one of these nylocks, we just need to trim them down there. Let's make them shorter. That's a little bit, you got to have threads protruding through your nylocks, you see, but that's excessive. This is a hallmark of like everything I did on this car. I was afraid I'd have to backtrack. I didn't know what I was doing, combined with the fact that I was afraid if I cut it wrong, I wasn't going to be able to afford another one. It's like different kind of time traveling. This is memory laning. I'm now covered in hot metal, but we're in deep well socket territory. That's kind of, you know, U-bolts can be a little bit finicky. Sometimes you gotta pinch them. And so it seems like having longer stalactites might help, but I think in our case, this is gonna be okay. I hope so, otherwise I'm buying new U-bolts. And I'll be like, younger me, you were right. Now that we're in deep well socket territory, it's just a reminder that the way I put these on must have been with a wrench, turn by turn by turn, and they're fine thread, and they're Nylox. Think about that. But let me tell you what, I hate the smell of gear oil. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. It's the sulfur and everything in it, and also because maybe I followed a dump truck that was leaking gear oil all the way to work on a hot summer morning with no air conditioning after a long night of carousing. And I noticed on the drive back, as this leaked out, the super spaceship aerodynamics of this truck, it just drags everything back. So I was huffing this stuff all afternoon in 90-degree heat. Fortunately, this is the discount dish soap. I'll tell you what, it's nothing like Dawn. I'm telling you, that's why they clean the baby ducks with it. Anybody got an over-under on whether the new fuel pump works? Don't fit in here. Don't touch the nice headliner with your spider helmet. It's a very different sound. I wonder if it's pouring fuel everywhere. Ah. If it's pouring fuel, it's pouring less than the last one. You would think she'll fire up. Neutral, neutral, neutral. Man. How about it? How about it? Well, I think we got just enough room here. For being real, after all day, we're still in look-see phase, you know? I gotta get this thing up in the air. I gotta pull both wheels off it. Then we gotta measure everything and make sure we're gonna be good. Then we gotta inspect this rear end. Feel very confident about the gears, but if the brakes are hosed, not like brake hoses, but brakes are hosed, we need to, I wanna go ahead and church up this rear end. Basically, until that's ready to go, that's not going anywhere. Let's chalk these front wheels and see. It's a good reminder, chalk the wheels, guys, because if this works out, eventually we're going to be pulling the drive shaft out, and hell, we're lifting the back end off the ground, so it doesn't matter what gear it's in. You know what I'm saying? And this thing will gladly roll forward and take my tool case and go right through that wall. And if I'm under it at the time, splat. They say Pittsburgh on them, so you know they're tough. Too tough. Too tough because they're too tall. Round two. Spiders everywhere. Look at this guy. He's trying to get me. Trying to get me. I was too quick. Don't you come back here. I'll let you go. I'll let you go. You go. This thing doesn't really have a gentle release mode most of the time. I hope it's in a good mood, because usually it's in like a give it up real quick and be done mode. All right, that opened up a lot. So much that our wheels are back on the ground. Our chances are much higher of being able to sneak it out the side and leaving the springs in place. But we got to keep going up. All right, gang, we got to glove up. Just because there were no spiders back there yesterday doesn't mean the Spidermans didn't move in overnight, you know what I'm saying? I want to see good news behind here, not spiders. And we're guaranteed to kick later and slow motion just to hold the edge. Okay. Spider check. Gang, I'm liking what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is, with a wrestling match here, I think that I can get this rear end out this way without undoing the leaf springs, which would be beneficial in my opinion. Guys, I think my brain just did a good thing. Check this out. I was figuring out, how am I gonna measure this? I got an idea. Not bad, huh? Just clamp that there. Now I can use my wiggly stick of truth and scoop myself to the other side and try to hook on that and see how we're doing. Oh, no. Come on now, buddy. I used to be world champion at this. 60, give or take an eighth, because I'm hooked onto an eighth piece of steel, or 3/16 maybe, I don't know. All right, little buddy. 61 and a quarter-ish. Maybe 3/8. So we're gonna grow a 1/2 inch and 3/16 on either side. We have the room to do it. It's good news. It's good news. All right, we gotta get into this thing. Check brakes, check everything else, put a new gasket, lists of things, more stuff to name. Start out with some morning calisthenics, 2 rear end lifts. That would be better, wouldn't it? All right, I gave the brake drums a cursory wiggle and they didn't want to come off, and that means one of two things. Either they're just adjusted correctly, or more likely they're worn slap out and have dug a groove right into the drum. I was gonna brag on myself and say, hey, I got a brake spoon around here somewhere, but having one and knowing where it is are two totally different things, aren't they now? I've even used it recently, so what does that mean? Makes it more complicated. Did I put it back or not? And if I didn't, where did I put it? Look, you see it? You see it? No, you don't. Sneaky little devil. Sneaky little devil. Hiding out. Right where it was supposed to be. We're gonna get in here with the spoon, but if that doesn't work, I brought the Attitude Adjuster. The thing about this is, if it's got a big old groove in there, then you're gonna take the brake shoes with it. That's not happening right now. Forgot where we were. I had to pause for a little rescue mission. I looked up, and there were dogs over there that belong over there. So we had to go do a little dog rescue, because in my neighborhood, I live on a street, it's about a 1/4 mile long and it's straight. So every two-bit hood and a jalopy thinks it's a drag strip, and it's not. And there's children and dogs and stuff. So anyway, dogs are back. They'll be yelling at me shortly, I'm sure. But let's get back to whatever the hell it was we were doing. Oh, brake clean, that's what we're after. Yoink. Like old brakes. The shoes look brand new. The wheel cylinder does not appear to be leaking.
Yes, it is.
And neither does the axle seal, knock on wood. So we're gonna spray it out with this guy and hopefully move on. I need safety glasses. Somehow I always get brake clean right in my eye, no matter what. All right, now we're talking. Same deal on this side. It does not look like the axle seal is leaking. Can't tell if that's grease or if we do have a little bit of a leaky wheel cylinder.
Was leaking badly.
We'll find that out soon enough though. I think it's good enough that I'm gonna let it ride, especially with these brand new shoes. Redoing the brakes in the car is not really a big deal. What I didn't want to get into was a situation where I found the axle seal was bad after I put it in the car. I hate replacing axle seals, but right now we could just pull that cover off, pop the C-clips out, slide the axles out, and do the bearings and seals, which is no fun, but it's way less fun if this is way up in the car, which is something I am dreading on that thing. And here comes the tricky part to installing any rear end. Same thing we did on the Model T, same thing we did on the Mercury, and same thing we're gonna do now. Slightly different suspension setup, but the bottom line is we gotta put in new perches because, well, 2 reasons. 1, this would lower our car down. 2, this is wider than the spring we're running and would leave way too much room to be all sloppy. And 3, I don't know what this pinion angle is if it was sitting on those springs. I guess we could find out. We'll find out. I just want you to see this. I got my Spider helmet on for a reason. Look at these fellers. That's overnight. Overnight. They're more industrious than I am, little bastards. because the spring perches on that rear end are just close enough to make me like, you know. It's close enough to be a heartbreaker. Turns out that the spring perches are in exactly the right place side to side. And at the wrong pinion angle, and at the wrong width. I see no real way forward but to 86 them. Gang, that ain't bad. We've got a big old spot well right here that I'm hoping old Leroy can take care of. Oh! I was gonna pick that up, but it's probably really hot. It was shady here this morning. Sun's moved. It's afternoon. It's in the 90s. Over and out. It's a thing. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to move heavy stuff. And we gotta do a spiderectomy because they're just everywhere. Get my good old-fashioned spider begone. Gotta find a piece of breakdancing cardboard because I'll tell you what, breakdancing cardboard beats a creeper any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And I'm gonna tell you right now, some of this would be a lot easier with the Ramones plan, just to, you know, keep the energy up. But if I play the Ramones, I'll go to YouTube jail. Carl sit even longer, and eventually Vice Grip will show up and rescue the abandoned custom, and he'll spend a day working on it, and then in one day he'll drive it more than I've driven it in 20 years. Can't have that, man. Great Scott. Alright gang, time to bust this drive shaft loose. I am hoping that we've got the same U-joints on both pinions, but I don't know that we do. But if we don't, then I guess we're just gonna have to go to the U-joint store and figure it out. Called the drive shaft shop because this yoke is not the same as our 57 Chevy yoke, so I'm hoping they have an adapter U-joint, which they should have, but I want to have it in hand. They told me to bring the whole drive shaft. Let's see. Road. Yeah, can't get out, and I don't feel like going to find the keys. Come on. This thing is ridiculous. That'll do. Alright, we're in hustle mode. I don't think I left myself the room I should have. Can we thread the needle? Truck's only 20 feet long. Oh, we good? We good? Way back now? Oh, how about back there? How we doing? Oh, dang it. I'm good. Gang, I'm just cruising along, getting a little breeze in this pickup truck, and it occurred to me, 20 years ago when I started doing this stuff, I remember, I think they built this drive shaft, and I remember thinking like, oh, there's a drive shaft company, store thing, a place, and now I'm like, man, I can't believe how lucky I am that there's still a drive shaft shop around, you know? It's not gone the way of the dodo bird, because 20 years ago, within 10 miles of where I am, there's a carburetor shop. There was a place that rebuilt generators for $80. That's why I ran generators. I thought they were cooler, but it cost me less than an alternator even, and I could always get it repaired or fixed. That place is long gone, and the carburetor shop is in a part of, they call it West Midtown Atlanta, where the carburetor shop used to be. there are $1 million condos. That's just 20 years. It's just a reminder too. It's like, even if I can figure out what this is and order it off the internet, well, gang, it really does pay to support your neighbors, you know, if you want them to stay your neighbors. We've arrived. Let's go see if they can save the day. Back in business. Adapter U-joint, new hardware because it's actually straps, not U-bolts. When I asked for U-bolts, the guy didn't make fun of me. He said, is it U-bolts or straps? And I said, I don't know. He said, straps are most common. I said, I remember the pinion being threaded. I think it's straps. Nice as could be. Man, I just feel so lucky to have a place like this around. I really do. So what you can see here is the side, this one is bigger than this one. Fits like a glove. You know, going to a shop with a bona fide professional is time a lot better spent than, you know, endless research on the internet. Guy was there. I could ask questions. He could tell me stuff. I could learn it. He pulled this off the shelf. So great. So great. All right. Parts and pieces. Now to put them somewhere I won't lose them. I sure am glad I cut these things off though. All right. Use my brake hose removers. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this hose, and it's not necessarily the most advisable action, but I know this brake hose to be 20 years old, and so no matter how good it looks, doesn't mean it's not disintegrating on the inside. Checked, snip. First of all, I'm not sure that that hose is gonna work for our new rear end. Second, I've checked and it is in stock locally at the O'Reilly's. So, it's done. I already did it while we were talking. I don't even know if you could see it. Hoping we get as lucky on this side as we got on the other side. There we go. Next. All right. You usually don't win fights like that. Oh, nope, 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 nope. Come on now. Nailed it. Graceful like a gazelle. Get out of here, little buddy. Easy as pie, ladies and gentlemen. Hot rodding is fun. 1, 2, 3, karate. Nope. Feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme. Something, it's bobsled time. Whew. Cool runnings. Hi-ya. Nope. It's quite glamorous, hot rodding, you see. I just don't have the energy to get under there and lift it right now, and I can't seem to make it balance on the jack. Am I in that shock again? That was dumb, but it worked. Kind of. Don't fall off, please. Alright, you land on the pinion. you. All right. All right. Woo-wee. Good gravy. It's every bit of 90 degrees, team. Every bit. We're gonna get technical for a few seconds because this may help somebody out. This little plate right here, if you're working on a 49 to 54 Chevrolet torque tube, it may even extend further back than that. I'm not really sure. Definitely 53, 54. If you're using a stock style spring, which I am, it's a Posies spring made for this car that goes in the stock location. You need to move the center point of your perch that's on there back. So that will go over the pin in the car, and this will go over the pin on my little brackety bracket. 2 inches. 2 inches is what you need. It has to do with the original torque tube geometry, but in order to center the wheel in the wheel well, this is what you got to do. It was built into the perch on the torque tube rear end. Mine's long gone, so I can't show it to you. See if we can get this kind of cobbled back together. All right, so maybe you guys can kind of see. So this guy goes on there. This guy goes on there. And then this guy goes on there. That's kind of how the whole shebang works. All right, gang, measured a couple times, basically got the thing centered. I measured from the spring to the backing plate on both sides, counting on the spring to be centered on the frame to be centered on the car. Now, I'm gonna tighten these U-bolts down, hopefully just enough, and then we'll set the pinion angle. Because this thing's already sitting in the perches, we'll double check center. Man, that actually looks really good. Gentle. Gentle. I know I ain't got the energy to fight you. Can you just please do the thing? Thanks, pal. First glance, we're looking pretty centered. We're looking like we're gonna clear. We're looking like our mathematics worked out this time. It's not something that's a given around here, fellas, if you watch the program. Should I be concerned about that noise? What is that noise? Oh, my drain pail. That's what that noise is. I should be concerned about it. Come on, baby. Come on. All right, stay right there. Stay right there. No, stay right there. No, come back this way. Stay right there. It's a much heavier car than the Model T. Let's do that. Let's do that.